Welcome to the second meeting where we discuss the strategic document on strategic communication of Georgia and Euro-Atlantic integration. Today we have opportunity to discuss this very important issue with all stakeholders, including civil society representatives and representatives of different ministries, as well as the experts from Slovakia who will share with us the lessons learned Slovakia had in the same process. Let me pass the floor to the State Minister, Mr. Victor Davido, for the welcoming remarks.
Thank you very much, Malika. Good afternoon, everybody. As far as you know, this is the second meeting of the ministry and all stakeholders, including civil sector. First of all, I would like to appreciate to all agencies who are involved there and all representatives of NGOs and civil sector of Georgia. I think that quite a huge work has been done before, and I would like to appreciate first of all Levan Mikeladzes Foundation for its support, as well as Atlantic Council. And David, thank you very much. And to Georgi Muchanides, as far as I understood, you worked out for the product which we have so far. And frankly speaking, for me it's very interesting to elaborate and to listen from you, your views and thoughts on the process itself, because as you know, on one hand we have European integration strategy, which is a separate document, as you know, but on the other hand we don't have the Euro-Atlantic strategy, and it will be very interesting for me personally to know from you, how do you look at this process? Shall we have one integrated, let's say, document, or it will be kind of separate process between the EU and NATO integration of Georgia? I think that today we will listen from experts and appreciate our Slovak ambassador for being with us, and Slovak expert. Your views also will be very interesting for us. And thank you very much for what has been done from your side so far. And then we continue this working process, but I think that this is crucially important for the beginning of next year to have a very clear picture and clear view where we are going, how we will integrate these type of documents, or we will have separate strategy for NATO integration. And I wish you productive work. Thank you very much once again to all of you, and now I would like to pass this floor to David Tsikhanidze. Floor is yours, David. Thanks.
Thank you, Victor. Let me thank Ministry of Euro-Atlantic Integration, Malika personally, and also of course Levan Mikeladzes Foundation for development of Euro-Atlantic integration strategy. I think that it's really one of the most important documents when it comes to the strategic goals of NATO integration. I think that such strategy, concise and industrial strategy is absolutely necessary to advance Georgia's Euro-Atlantic integration, NATO integration, as well as to effectively counter the Russian propaganda of Euro-based anti-Western and integration propaganda. And first of all, I have to mention that these kind of strategies are very important because they not only reflect the view of particular parts of society, but most of society. And especially glad to see that civil society is so much engaged in developing this document. So, as part of the delay, without further delay, I'd like to ask Mr. Guillermo Richard to come to present, as I understand, the first draft of the document, National Security Strategy, about the integration communication strategy.
Thank you very much. Once again, let me extend my gratitude for Levan Keller Foundation and excellent cooperation from the State Minister's Office for European and Euro-Atlantic Integration for going along the way for drafting the strategy and hopefully in the near future making it alive and putting it into force. As Victor said, it's very important to make a decision whether this one and another one, the European integration communication strategy, will be merged and presented as one document, or maybe for quite some time they go along separately. Because on this decision will depend also on the guiding documents and the structure of the strategy. And also the government organs that will be coordinating the strategy. Now, let me get right to the business. And before that, let me also thank everybody who has sent their insightful comments on the preliminary, on the structured draft of the strategy that was provided. This is first draft, that one was only structural draft. And especially let me also underline our fellow experts' contribution. Thank you, Mr. Yaroslav, for that. And let me now switch right away to the strategy. You have on the table the document in both languages, in English and in Georgian. And let's proceed with the chapters of the strategy. So, one of my ambitions was not to make it a big document. Because when it's 20 pages, 30 pages, nobody reads it, and it's not really very useful. And even the size that you see now could be further squeezed and made more compact. And another thing that I concentrated on, among other things, was that to somehow integrate into the strategy also the possible reshuffling of the framework for the coordination, intergovernmental and not only coordination for implementation of this strategy, and also its guiding documents. Nothing to say about, of course, the goals, tasks, tasks and the integration implementation mechanism, which is very crucial in making strategy really functional and putting it into life. So what you see is now the structure of the strategy. As you see, of course, we start from introduction, strategic environment, goals, tasks, and strategic approaches. The second chapter is very important to me because it really gives the sense and the flavor what this strategy is all about, and what are the main approaches that are integrated in the strategy and are kind of a guidance points in implementing the Euro-Atlantic integration communication strategy. But let's start from the beginning, right? So what I do now is to give you the conceptual understanding of what it's all about in chapters, and then we pass the floor to my dear colleague Yaroslav, and then afterwards we open the floor for discussions. So the first part is an introduction part. The document comes with some introduction, and so here you see this 4 points, major 4 points on which it concentrates. So that NATO integration is a foreign and security, major foreign and security priority, supported by the wider public. Then the overview of the history of our cooperation with NATO, the major mechanisms within this interaction that are supporting the NATO integration, and also the various documents that have been drafted and have been functional in this respect. Yes. Then we go to the strategic environment. So before drafting this part of the strategy, I went through quite a number of documents, and especially this year was, previous year as well, but this year also was, those 2 years were very productive for the documents, approaches, the resolutions adopted by European Union and NATO. Being it the hybrid warfare strategy, being it the STRATCOM unit established within EU, or being the strategic communication center of excellence of NATO, also the adoption of the resolution by the European Parliament, which very directly underlines the threat of the Russian propaganda, and also namely mentions the Eastern European neighbor countries where this strategy, where this propaganda is bearing unfortunately quite some negative results. So, and then finally, of course, giving the picture of impact of the Russian propaganda in Georgia, and also the public support challenges to NATO EU integration, public support challenges for NATO and EU integration. That we are witnessing, and during the couple of years, the trend is not very positive. It's shifting all the time, but still, if you compare, the last 5 years, it's not a positive dynamic. Yes, and this is the big chapter, as I said. Goals, tests, and strategic approach. Right? So, we underline here, what is the major goal, core goal, I will call it, which the strategy should serve, and then, tasks, as you see in the draft strategy, I wouldn't go through it as you have in documents here. I want to make my presentation short in order to allow for more discussion on the details afterwards. So, the core goal, then we have the tasks of the strategy, and then our colleague from Slovakia has suggested, it's very useful also, as it appears from their campaign for NATO integration, to have very concise, easy to grasp motto that can be easily understood by the wider public and can send very clear message that it's not about some state being all right, but it's about everybody, every citizen, every family having a better deal and having a better perspective with the deeper integration into NATO. So as you see, there is this motto on which we can, of course, debate and make it even better if you wish. And then the main narratives on the that was also the suggestion to create some main narratives on the national level and on the international level. Though there are some other suggestions that the narratives could change, and maybe perhaps we should not put it into the strategy, and maybe to put it into the implementation plan only. But that's also a matter of the view and conceptual understanding. So the main narrative on national level, on international level, and then, as I said, the approaches that give the flavor of the strategy. So how we pursue our NATO communication endeavors, so which kind of approaches to make it really effective and make it result-oriented. something that can really change these things on the ground. And when I'm saying on the ground, I'm not talking about the domestic audience. We are talking about also our international partners, mostly of course NATO and the European Union member states, both the skeptical allies and our supportive partners within these organizations. Yes, and the strategy implementation mechanism. So the devil is in the details here, right? Because if you don't have this framework set rightly, then you can really have a lot of problems during the implementation. And if you look through those 4 years during which the European Union integration, strategy communication, strategy implementation plan was implemented, then you can guess what kind of problems we can endure. One of them is the not sufficient, maybe the political support on the very highest level, the necessity for making the coordination mechanism even more effective, then the guiding document should have more precise and result-oriented and measurable structure. And another thing is also, of course, that training also of the personnel, because very candidly, as we did a lot of interviews with many of the Georgian agencies, they very candidly told us that there is a lack of sometimes even basic understanding what is the strategic communication, and quite a lot of times it's mixed with the PR, public relations. And then, as I said, the document supporting the implementation of the strategy and their structure. The major document here is, of course, the annual implementation plan, and its precise structure will be very much helpful how effectively the strategy approaches will be implemented into the life through coordinated and whole of government approach. What does this whole of government approach mean? It's about coordinating the contributions from the different agencies, and also coordinating the forums and the strategy communication activities that they are aimed to the goals and the tasks set up, both in the strategy and also in the annual implementation plans, and there is an overlap. And there is a complementarity between the strategic communication activities, what different agencies are doing, and that it goes under the certain framework. We here also advocate for having the annual programs through which these strategies, strategic communication activities should be drafted and then implemented. Yes, yes, and then main target audiences of the strategy. As I said, they're very basic to audiences. One is on the national level, I mean the domestic public, of course, our society. And another one, not least important, I would suggest that when I drafted the strategic approaches, I deliberately separated it into 2 parts. The strategic approaches for the national level and strategic approaches for the international level, because there are some really significant differences in this respect in terms of the target group, in terms of the way we have to approach, in terms of the supporters, in terms of the supporters of for the implementation of the strategy, and in terms also of providing some outsourcing for the different, sometimes also non-governmental actors to help us put this strategy into life. Yes. And the next chapter is the channels and forms of the communication. Listed those in the chapter, there's a list of these channels and forms, and there's some prioritization made, and this is based on the recent researches and both on the domestic and international level about the impact of the different forms of the communication, different channels of communication, and for sure, number one is TV. TV programs, then TV channels. Of course, most popular ones are more important. And also the social media, which is increasingly becoming a more and more important media outlet to influence the public opinion, especially in the younger generation, which is more internet savvy, social network savvy, so on and so forth. And as I said, a very important thing is also to involve non-governmental actors in strategy implementation process, because some things, some would even argue sometimes the myth busting, and we have some programs already, private sector, not private sector, but non-governmental sector are sponsored and carried out, like myth busting and so on, that are doing pretty effectively this stuff, though some coordination can be done also on the government side, and I have mentioned and I have included also in this strategy the role of monitoring of the different media in terms of this myth and the negative narrative, narratives that are sometimes on daily, weekly, or monthly basis are appearing and influencing the hearts and minds of our population. And the outsourcing here is, as I said, the key word, to outsource some work to the non-governmental actors, and to have, there was also the previous meeting, there is debate, how should we call this strategy? Should it be the governmental strategy, as it's with the European Union Integration Issue Strategy Communication document, or to call it the national level strategy, right? So we can maybe still continue this debate. My personal view is that to have it to call it a national strategy, but we can discuss this later on. Yes, and strategy implementation financing. Yeah, again, financing is very important. If there is no money, then the things are not happening on the ground. And with all the agencies I talked, this center, including the financing, is a big problem. And so one of the recommendations that is put here for the, if it's adopted, it's not only a recommendation but a strategy to have a separate budget lines in each agency for strategic communication activities, and have it coordinated within the NATO integration coordination government level commission level, yes. So to have it coordinated under the State Commission for NATO integration, but at the same time to have separate budget lines within each agency, to have the secure funding for the strategic communication activities that they are planning through the annual implementation plan to carry out during the next year. Yes. Yeah, then the conclusion part, it's easy as we agreed on the strategy, then we put there short sentences, what type of document this is, what challenges it addresses, challenges and tasks, and what are the additional documents required to ensure its implementation, and what is the expectation, which would be the outcomes in case of its successful implementation, and that this is of course an open document. I very much urge that this to remain the open document without no confidentiality clause and perhaps on the top, and that it should be revised perhaps in every 4 years, and if it's necessary even earlier. And then the last part of the strategy is an annex. After we agree on the structure, which is in the previous, the implementation mechanism chapter outline, if we agree on that, then according to it, we will have the annual implementation plan format attached with its structure and everything to give a very precise form of the annual implementation through which to carry out the strategy's implementation process. But I think I better stop here and give back the floor to our chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it would be good to give floor to the Slovak experts for the comments, and then later we can move to the discussion and go in details and have kind of brainstorming. Thank you, Georgi, for your presentation.
Should I take my microphone here or should I go there? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. State Minister, Madam Deputy State Minister, dear Georgi, and all involved, all organizers. Thanks for inviting me here to Georgia, first of all. It's really a pleasure for me to come here every time and to see not only this beautiful country, but also my friend Slovak investor, whom I've known for years, and he's still saying a lot of perfect stories from this wonderful country. So great to be here and great to meet you all. I would like to start with expressing my gratitude to Georgi for his work. Really, this is actually for me the second draft. You called the first one the structural draft, I believe. So the first draft, but the second for me. I believe you've done a great job, and you really deserve a lot of positive feelings from all of us around here. You may know that I was involved back in 1998 till 2002 in the Slovak Committee for Preparation to NATO Membership called PRENAME, Preparation for NATO Membership. And we used to have a very similar communication strategy, which I had a chance to, let's say, compare to the draft that you have done. And I was coming out of this Slovak strategy also in terms of practical implementation that we went through and tried to implement my remarks to your document coming out of this. And I've seen that you have implemented many of my remarks. I thank you for that. Nevertheless, it's a second round of drafting, and it's my job to present several recommendations that I have. But before I do so, I need to say that obviously I'm just an external expert here. It's up to you, it's up to the author, it's up to the governmental authorities to decide whether you will implement my remarks or recommendations or not. But I try to do my best. And these my recommendations are not coming only from my work at the Defense Ministry or during the pre-accession period in Slovakia, but also they are coming also from my experience when I was working at our delegation to NATO. And I was representative of Slovakia to several committees which were dealing with enlargement of NATO, and we have gone through different problems of different countries in pre-accession period, and I know how, or at least I have a feeling that I know how the member states are thinking in evaluating different documents that countries who are willing to join NATO have or prepare. And therefore, sometimes I have some recommendations that are maybe mostly coming of my feeling that NATO countries would like to see a little bit different. But again, it's up to you. Let me go through the different to the other chapters, but very briefly. For the introduction, I recommend you to make it shorter and more systematic. There are a few things that are rather technical, and I will not take time with that. I will tell it personally to you. Nevertheless, I would like to see your mentioning of NATO response force to be a part of NATO operations. That's very important. NATO considers NRF to be a part of their operation agenda, and make it even bold that you have participated in the NRF. That's very, not only operation that I told you previously, but also the NRF. That's very important, really. That's something that you should be proud of, and it's worth mentioning. Make it shorter, the introduction, make it more robust, systematic, and I will give you concrete points personally. For the second chapter, or the first chapter, called Strategic Environment. I've sent this advice or recommendation to you, Georgi, even before. Please don't get me wrong. I understand how difficult your relationship is with the Russian Federation, but you need to understand that NATO membership is not only about Russia and propaganda from Russia. It's much larger. And if you focus in this environment, in this strategic environment, only on Russia, which is the case, honestly, as of now, then it wouldn't have positive reflection vis-a-vis between or among member states around the table. They want to see the whole picture, and the whole picture, the strategic environment is much more complicated. Make it broader, make it deeper. Black Sea region, regional actors, different threats, different relationships that you have, and where NATO can be a way how to improve the situation. And I advise you in this part to cut several paragraphs describing how NATO and EU are trying to cope with the Russian propaganda. It's rather technical, and I don't think it's necessary to explain in this kind of document what NATO and EU is doing in order to fight Russian propaganda. It actually has just a little bit to do with your own communication strategy, which has a different goal to inform people and to change their attitude, or even to improve, I would say, to increase popularity, which is rather high still comparing to situation in Slovakia. Let's say 2 years before we were invited to NATO, support for NATO membership in Slovakia was rather 20%. And we were able to reach more than 50% by the day of our accession, which was really an extraordinary result, but we were in a tough situation.
And now?
Currently, the recent polls say that 54% of Slovaks are supporting NATO membership, maybe 20% are against, and there is good 30% that are decided or don't know what to think. The situation is worse with less educated people from the rural parts and first voters, first-time voters. It's really, I don't want to bother you with the Slovak situation, but young people are now more, I would say, supporting extremist political parties and share pro-Russian narrative, which is not a good story, and we need to do our job in order to change it again. Another chapter is goals, tasks, and strategic approaches. Now it's rather my question, what is actually the goal that you would like to have? As you say that your goal is to inform people, our goal was to reach support from people, which is really, it's up to you. If you want to inform people, fair enough, but you can have informed people who are against membership. Our goal was to change their attitude. It's up to you. Again, but my advice would be to change it for getting stronger support for NATO and EU membership among your citizens.
It's both.
Again, that's just my advice, and it's up to you how you decide to write it and to do it. For the motto, thank you for accepting my proposal. It's fine. It says what you need to say. Maybe in terms of marketing, it's better to use shorter versions. Maybe I would advise you today to do something like NATO, safe and prosperous Georgia. But again, that's just my recommendation. Another chapter is strategy implementation mechanisms. Let me underline here that if I'm not mentioning all the parts that you have, it's because I agree with them. So, Georgi, if I skip, all the parts that you have on narratives, and it's all very well done. Therefore, I'm not discussing that because I agree with you completely how you wrote it. Strategy implementation mechanisms, the next chapter. Well, this part, honestly speaking, is for me rather complicated, like, because I'm not from this environment. You know very well how your internal procedures work. If you understand it, if you know what it is, then it's absolutely okay with me. I would like to support your point on SOPs, standard operational procedures for planning and implementation processes. That's a very good idea, and we didn't have that, and I would say that it would be good to have it. Good point. Another point, another chapter is main target audience. Yes, I tried to give you some examples from our pre-accession period, from our communication strategy, and I've seen that you implemented much of that, which is super. On national level, yes, it is absolutely up to you to decide what target groups you will focus on. You have people who are supporting, who are opposing, and who don't know. In Slovakia, we have decided to go through not persuading those who are negative. Because you simply, if somebody is strongly negative, it will be almost a miracle to change his opinion through communication strategy. But you can work with those who are undecided, and you need to keep your supporters. This is what we have decided to go through, and we went two different ways. And we were successful enough to say that maybe 80% of undecided we have changed to positive attitude during our campaign. On international level, I absolutely agree with you with the proposal to focus on those countries who are not only supporting your membership in NATO or EU, but also those who are stakeholders, I would say. And here, based on my personal, you know it very well, obviously, but my personal experience from NATO says that you need to, for enlargement, you need to persuade two countries, and that's obviously the United States and Germany. If I were you, I would definitely focus on these two countries. United States, we'll see what's going to happen with the new president and his administration. The previous administration was positive vis-à-vis Georgia, but was very balancing in their positions in regards to what countries like Germany or France are thinking. If you persuade Germany, which will be very difficult, then I believe that you will have a green light for accession. Another chapter is potential partners and supporters. Nothing really to add to this part, just two small things. Don't forget to involve students, retired people, and military to this process. These three groups helped us mostly in our campaign. Students, retired people, and military. I advised in my remarks previously sent to create a picture of, let's say, Mr. NATO, but not in terms of a civilian representative. We had also those people. Our Deputy Minister of Defense was so-called Mr. NATO, as he was the face. But we have also created military picture of a young, modern military officer from NATO armed forces. And that worked very well among not only professional soldiers, military, but also among people. Armed forces in Slovakia have big support. More than 75 people. It's the most trustworthy institution in Slovakia, the armed forces. And when soldiers started to communicate NATO membership as their goal, as something they believe in, it helped a lot. And students.
Why retired people?
Yeah, honestly speaking, many retired people were opposing NATO membership because they used to live for ages in communism, being taught in Soviet schools in Russia, having still close relationship to Communist Party. We needed to find people who were retired, but popular among retired people who had a real impact on like something like decision or opinion makers. Sorry, and we succeeded. We found one actor, retired actor, who was very popular, and he was going really village to village, discussing with retired people how important it is to join NATO and EU, and that was very, very positive. One more point to potential partner supporters. You have mentioned in your paper lobbying, and that's extremely important. Use your diaspora, that's really something very important, but also please decide to actually pay for professional lobbyists in DC. In Washington DC we did so, and it helped us a lot. It's not cheap, but it's working well. Channels and forms of communication. Yes, TVs, as you have mentioned, social media, don't understand social media really, and then village to village, door to door campaign. That's really something that works well. Currently, we have a new communication campaign to fight extremism in Slovakia and to, again, increase popularity of EU. And we're using social media, we're using graphics, videos, animated video explainers. That's something that really works very well. 30 seconds long video explainer, animated, used in social media or in TV stations. And that's something that people understand. Even NATO and EU are now, they found out that video explainers are something that works well. Many people see it, many people share it. Therefore, they somehow advise us to use it as much as possible. And the last point that I have in my short presentation is financing. Financing is obviously extremely important. It's not cheap. In 1998 and 2002, we had a mixed coalition, center-left, center-right, from communists, Democrats. It was a very difficult situation, and even internal opponents of NATO membership were involved in the government, the cabinet. And it really, thank God we had a strong leader, Prime Minister Durinda, who was strong enough to find adequate and sufficient budgeting for the whole process of accession. It wasn't cheap, but unless you have prepared and budgeted money for all your things, to know very well that at the end of the day you might be finding difficulties to implement this strategy to practice. First budgeting and then implementing. But you know it very well. Thank you very much for your work again, Georgi, and I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Jaroslav, for your indeed valuable comments. I personally share most of them, and looking forward for the discussion on details. Just to echo some of them, some of the comments. We mentioned the introduction part, which is indeed it's better to make it shorter, but the document itself should be shorter. It should be more readable. It's supposed to be more static, reflective, and readable document, and then we will have action plan. It can be more in detail, more how to say, specific, But when it comes to the strategy and the main document, it should be comprehensive, but it doesn't mean that it should be so big and enriched with a lot of details. That's about the content and the quantity. And also, I have a question to be discussed later about the motto. Is it necessary to have a motto and kind of core message in the document itself? I think it might be changed and time is passing. It's not a 1 year document, it's supposed to be like 3 years at least. So the strategy itself should be flexible in timing as well. I think it's not necessary to change it every 2 years after the developments in the country. So I think we should also discuss, is it necessary to have motto in the document or not. I fully agree that military should be one of the target groups, because it's quite a big amount of people really related to the issues. But when it comes to the content, it's better to focus on the values, on the sharing of the same values when it comes to economic development, security and so on, but to have more about the values, sharing the same values, because we are discussing also like one document on EU and NATO, to have these 2 documents in one, and the value-based document will be more flexible in terms of joining and matching the same kind of targets. Thank you. And do you have any notes?
Well, yes, first of all, thanks both speakers, to Georgi and Oleg, and I agree with Marika on issue of values. I'm a proponent of integrated document, integrated strategic communication document. I think that there is very little difference between our goals with the NATO and EU integration. I think in general, strategic communication level, I think that both integration processes should be based on the same value messages, and also what does it mean to integrate it into these 2 institutions. The second, also my impression is that we should, well, it's a good draft. I truly commend Georgi on this. I think the next step should be downsizing it. I mean, shorter. And the third point, my third point is that I think that we have to focus on more on the generalized issue, general issues, such as the message development mechanisms within the government, because we cannot predict what kind of messages or what kind of narratives we will be facing maybe 2 years, 1 year from now, and then it's a 3-year document. I think that if the framework is right, then this is an annual plan or day-to-day work, how to develop the messages. And I think that there are a number of, I don't think that today we have time to discuss all the particular messages we have to confirm, but I think that these messages may be changeable, are changeable. They may be changed in time. And important thing is to have the general approach and the general, let's say, the modus operandi now we are working on it.
Now the floor is up for the discussion. Ladies first.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity, Minister Olev, Minister of the Information Center of course. It's working. Okay. And to our expert,
Georgi Muchaidze. I think it's a very good draft. We have a draft and it's already developed. Most of the recommendations are already envisaged after the first meeting. I think for how to continue this process is that we will develop the recommendations and send them again, but I mean the technical recommendations. So, but here are the some issues I would like to focus. First of all, it's a title of the document. I think it should be not an integration, communication, government strategy, but it's my opinion, if we think about the Euro-Atlantic membership communication national strategy, because the governmental is a little bit focused on government, national is that there are much more possibility for the municipalities and the local NGOs, local actors to be involved. We can think about it, it's my opinion. So, but use the term membership rather than the integration, I think it also would be helpful. About I think it's also long, we can shorten the strategy. Also, in the, I don't remember which page, but there is a written that we don't have, that we need to strengthen the strategic communication system. I think we need to develop the system because we don't have the system yet. So probably part of the strategy should be focused on the developing the strategic communication system. One issue that I have is about the mechanisms. You mentioned in the strategy that there is the informal working group working under the state commission. Yes, it's informally, but there is